On today's show, who's the star of this Minnesota festival, you may ask? We'll tag along and give a hoot. It's everything you've ever wanted to know about the owl. Next up, we travel to Warroad, Minnesota, where we found a true craftsman in the art of toboggan making. It's time also for Wild in the Kitchen. Laura Schara has an idea for that venison sitting in your freezer.
I got one.
And our Minnesota-bound classic this week includes ice, Mr. Walleye, and a lot of panfish action. Those stories and more coming up next on Minnesota Bound.
This guy, Gary.
Minnesota Bound. Brought to you by Minnesota's select GMC dealers.
Hi, everybody. Raven and I welcome you to the show. You know, every March in the small town of Houston, Minnesota, there's a big event called the Owl Festival. Who knew? Welcome to Houston, Minnesota, home to the nation's only Owl Festival, and now home to the International Owl Center. Wise about it all is Executive Director Karla Bloem.
Glad to have you here. Welcome to Houston, Minnesota. We started the Owl Festival 14 years ago through the Houston Nature Center. What kind of owl are you going to do for us?
Barn owl. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
We're a town of 1,000 people, and we had 300 people show up the first year, and we thought, oh, that's pretty good. Let's build on this. So we kept doing it, and after a few years, we had people flying here from Alabama and California and New York. We thought, why are you flying to Houston, Minnesota in the beginning of March for our Owl Festival? And that's when we realized nobody else was doing anything like this.
It's fair to say, when it comes to admiring owls, lots of folks from the world over really give a hoot.
It's not just modern times. If you look throughout the world, throughout cultures, throughout history, everybody likes owls.
The Owl Fest is more about learning, however, because owls are the stars of this show.
And she's gorgeous. She's one of the largest owls in the world. How much do you guess that she weighs? 10 pounds, 6, 12? Actually about 5.5 pounds. So 2,300 grams.
In the company of owls, it's important to know who's who.
I'm a snowy owl.
Owls fly in all shapes and sizes.
So I'm going to let her go back. Shake your head. She's not actually doing that because I said it. I just know that she always shakes her head when she hears that. So.
Let's just say owls are too owly to do tricks.
Training owls is extremely difficult. It's like trying to train a cat to do something. They're not going to do it unless they feel like they want to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Who is going to ask Uhu to do anything?
Uhu's kind of gotten to be the star because she's big. She's one of the largest owl species in the world, and females are bigger than males, so she's a very big bird. And she has orange eyes, which is very dramatic. We don't have any owls in North America that have orange eyes.
While most owls hunt at night, they do regurgitate the indigestible remains of their last meal. Hair, feathers, bones, called owl pellets. The idea of snooping through an owl pellet is to identify who did the owl eat.
What is that?
What does it look like in here?
It's like those, which are, I think, right there.
Only the wise owls know. Huntin' and hootin' the night away. It's handmade by a craftsman at his best. Meet the mentor and the apprentice coming up.
Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Minnesota's select GMC dealers, Ice Force, Connecticut, and by Star Bank.
Coming up, a story about a Minnesota craftsman. We have lots of them who make things out of our natural resources, in this case, toboggans, used for all kinds of purposes. In Warroad, Minnesota, winter's snowy blanket makes everything seem peaceful. Here at this quiet backyard workshop, the day is just getting started. And for the Harren family business, let's just say the snowy conditions are perfect.
This one's too short. We shoot to get them like 16'1".
John Harren is a craftsman of a winter tradition that's centuries old, making wooden toboggans by hand.
My understanding is that wooden sleds showed up in Canada about the time of the fur trade, so it was probably a European influence. And the first sleds were toboggans that were pulled by hand for a hunter on snowshoes.
A carpenter by trade, Harren credits his uncle for getting him into the toboggan business. John's uncle had heard of a toboggan shortage in the 1990s and encouraged John to take up an apprenticeship with a respected toboggan maker who lived in Manitoba, Canada.
It's a tool, I guess I think of it as a tool. The people that are buying our toboggans don't have a lot of resource, but it's a major purchase for them. It's a main thing. They need a snowmobile to travel there, and they need a sled. It's not an extra thing, or it's not like a hobby thing, or sporting goods or anything like that. It's a part of a necessity. We put a taper in the end that's going to be bent.
John mastered the craft, and Northern Toboggan and Sled was born. Since then, toboggan building has been a family affair.
We make toboggans. We've always made toboggans, I guess, about as far back as I can remember. It's just been our family farm. It's just been something that my dad does, and we help out along the way as much as we can.
And while John is now master craftsman, his work highly regarded, it's time for him to share the art of toboggan making. After all,
There's the steam chamber right there.
he's the only one who can.
Who make them commercially to supply. I think I'm the last guy. The stuff is bending pretty nice. Oh. We call it a bending jig. That's what gives you the leverage to bend the board, but also that's how the board is stored until it's dried. Can you get that in, Ammon?
While John's children take part in other areas of the business, he needed to find an artisan of wood, like himself.
What's really going to be key is that we get the right apprentice in here, person who is going to learn the trade and enjoy doing it.
Meet 26-year-old Ammon Jeffs, the apprentice.
I really enjoy learning these skills from the things that have been done for years and years, to know how it was done, instead of losing the ways it was done before. That's a way to put it.
John and Ammon have been working side by side in the shop since last fall. teaching and learning the art.
Is that clamp still tight?
Yes,
If we didn't keep it up, it would be a lost art.
it would be.
Yeah.
Like many other arts from even 1 or 2 centuries ago.
And Ammon's getting to know more about the people that are getting them, the end user, those communities.
The result is the art of toboggan making will not be lost. John and Ammon will see to that.
All right, she's done.
We're ready to wrap it in the bacon.
It's time for Wild in the Kitchen with ideas of what to do with that venison in your freezer. Schara has the recipe to try.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Borderview Lodge.
Time now to go wild in the kitchen. You can't go much wilder than fixing venison, right? Laura and Chef Jim have the answer.
Today in Wild in the Kitchen, it is all about heirloom childhood favorite recipes, and I'm here with Jim Kinberg from Firelight Grill House and Cocktail Bar. And Jim, I understand we're making Grandma's meatloaf, but it's actually Grandma's venison meatloaf.
That's right. It is definitely inspired from Grandma's recipe. We've given a little twist with the venison today, but delicious comfort food.
I'm seeing some good ingredients, including #1 ingredient, one of my favorites, bacon. Who doesn't love bacon?
You got it.
So Jim, I'm noticing that we have 2 types of meat in here. So one must be venison, but what's the other?
We've got some pork sausage in there. So you've got 2 pounds of ground venison to 1 pound of pork sausage. We've also got a little bit of binder in which we can get started with if you want to take those breadcrumbs. These are the Japanese breadcrumbs.
Excellent.
1 cup, dump those in there, and then we've got a 1/3 cup of whole milk. Just pour that right over the top. You want to grab the onions. There's some garlic over there. So just a little bit of clarified butter.
Onions first?
Onions first. So those are going to take a little bit longer to cook. We're also going to add a little bit of garlic. So that's 1 tablespoon, approximately 3 cloves. If you could grab me, there's some Italian seasonings over there.
Got it.
There's also a little bit of celery seed. Approximately 2 teaspoons of the Italian seasoning, and then 1 teaspoon of those celery seeds.
Celery seed, that smells good. So we're letting the onion mixture cool down because we don't want it to cook the meat.
Correct.
All right, so what is the next step?
Once you add the salt and pepper, we've got about 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Just
So
dump
all of
it
this
in there.
salt,
Oh yeah,
okay.
we're gonna get in there with our hands and mix
All
this all
right,
together.
I like it.
About 3/4 teaspoon of fresh ground pepper.
Fresh ground pepper.
And then we got to crack 2 eggs into this.
All right, what do we do with the Worcestershire? Let's be honest,
Worcestershire.
no one knows how to say this word, do we?
Take that bottle and shake a couple teaspoons
Okay.
worth right over the top. That's going to add some more flavor as well. If you want to take the onions, those should have cooled off
They're
enough.
cooled down.
And last, we've got those soaked breadcrumbs going in there. And now we're ready to mix.
This is the fun part of cooking right here.
Yep. So the idea is you want to combine all those evenly, but you really don't want to overwork it because sometimes that gets the meat a little tough. All right, so we're ready for the meat. We've got our bacon laid out. You want to just kind of set it horizontally.
Horizontally, that's the trick.
Now we're ready to wrap it in the bacon, and we're going to just kind of lattice it on the back, make a nice seam. If you want to grab that, pull
So
it
you're
over.
almost braiding the bacon to make sure the
Almost.
meatloaf stays together.
We're going to season it with just a little bit of dry rub, give it another little layer of flavor. And then for baking, this is actually going to go in that 350-degree oven, 30 minutes under foil.
30 minutes under foil.
Last 15 minutes, we're going to remove the foil, let that bacon get nice and crisp and golden brown.
Look at that.
All right.
Now there is a meatloaf.
So we cook this to about 160 degrees internal temperature.
Now the one thing I've noticed that Grandma always used on her meatloaf was ketchup.
Correct.
And I like that we're not using ketchup.
Me as well. That's kind of a controversy in my house. I'm not a big fan of the ketchup on the meatloaf. However, my wife and kids love it. So actually, I've got a little smoked Fire Lake ketchup we'll serve on the side.
That sounds
If you like
good.
it, it's there for you.
But it doesn't necessarily need it. So there you have it, Grandma's heirloom recipe with a twist. Venison meatloaf, so easy and so wildly delicious. All right, I'm going in for a bite. I'm gonna dip it in the ketchup, just because the ketchup's homemade.
How is it?
Very good,
Excellent.
very good.
Our Minnesota-bound classic this week looks back at an ice fishing adventure that includes Mr. Walleye himself, who catches the biggest fish. Need you ask?
Isn't that a beauty?
Minnesota Bound, brought to you by Northland Tracker Boating Centers, Evinrude, the official outboard motor of Minnesota Bound, and by Totem Resorts.
Coming up, our Minnesota Bound Classic. You know, anytime you get a chance to go fishing with Gary Roach, also known as Mr. Walleye, you do it, right? But this time it wasn't walleyes on the end of the line.
In the world of Gary Roach, America's Mr. Walleye,
Come on, girls. Come on.
it's not always serious fishing. Sometimes Mr. Walleye simply likes to have fun with an old friend. And then
All right, well, I'm ready, finally.
go fishing to some secret hotspot. Armed with fishing rods and a bucket, and plenty of optimism for every hole in the ice. Did you say optimism?
Got one. Got one. Nice crappie.
Oh, beauty.
Isn't that a beauty?
Yeah.
Look at that, huh? First cast, buddy.
Just magic.
Yeah, look at that. Isn't that a beauty?
That's
huh?
a dandy.
On the ice or in a boat, wherever Gary Roach goes, Minnesota's game fish seem to go with him. And it runs in the family. Meet Tony Roach, a grandnephew, but a major branch in the Roach family fishing tree.
That's the thing, is roaches, we grow up fishing, so it just becomes a natural, you know.
I got one. I got one. I got one. Oh,
Was
nice
that,
crappie.
was that the fish that you saw up high?
Oh, nice crappie. Look at that, man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look at that dandy, huh?
Another fishing fact about Gary Roach, nobody is more competitive.
Got to talk to him. You got to talk to him, Ron.
Talk to him?
Got to talk him.
Okay. What do you say to him?
For fishing, I'm really patient, you know. Patience is really a virtue that you have to have out there, and then you don't give up.
Oh, Gary!
What do you got?
Oh, mine's bigger than yours.
I think you'd have to have a guide to put you on them.
I did.
Oh, nice one, man.
Isn't that a beauty?
One advantage of hanging with the Roach family is the fishing luck can be contagious.
Fish on, fish on. Whoa, look at this guy. Whoa. Look at that one, Gary.
Oh, no, that's a sunny. Huh?
That is a sunny.
That's a 10-incher right there. See?
Wow.
Look at that, huh?
Isn't that a beauty? Thanks a lot, buddy.
Yeah, I love fishing with Gary. Gary's one of those guys that every time you go out fishing, you know, it's always a different experience. You know, he's always wants to go fishing, and that's like me. I wake up in the morning and you just look forward to going fishing.
Oh, man, look at this one. My God. Huh?
Those are beauties. You're known as Mr. Walleye, but it seems to me you're as tickled catching a nice bluegill or a crappie. You know, people don't know that about you.
Well, we grew up on Mission Lake, you know, and it was just chock full of bluegills and crappies and bass and not many walleyes. I love eating fish, and to me, a bluegill and a perch and a crappie, to me, are just as good eating as anything, you know.
But one secret of their success is being mobile. Drill lots of holes and test each one.
Ooh, I got myself a big old bluegill.
All right.
Oh, look at this guy, Gary.
Oh, man, huh?
Huh?
That's a good 10, 11-incher right there.
So it goes with Mr. Walleye. Where he goes, the fish all seem to follow.
There's one. Oh, missed him. Ah.
You know, Mr. Walleye would probably argue, but I think my bluegill was bigger than his, huh? Well, that about does it for us. Remember, introduce a kid to the great outdoors. I'm Ron Schara. At the star of the show is Raven, and she wants to do something.
Transportation provided by Premier Transportation. Call 1-800-899-7433. To get more Minnesota Bound, including full episodes, go to mnbound.com. And to follow our latest adventures, like us on Facebook.